Now, the minority in parliament says it stands by its position that the import restrictions legislation will rather collapse other industries, contrary to claims by the sector minister, Katie Hammond. The NDC MP also holds the view that any policy close to import restrictions, which gives ultimate power to the sector minister, gives room for cronyism and corruption. Trade Minister Katie Hammond has been speaking to Evans Mensah on recent developments.
We are not banning.
No, restricting.
We're restricting,
yes.
but we're restricting to the extent that we don't create famine in the country.
How do you propose to do that?
Well, exactly. So you see the committee that has been put together, Agriculture Ministry, Ministry, how many of them? You got a copy of this?
Ministry, you have the Ministry of Agriculture, you have the Finance Ministry, you have the GRA, you have
the food and whatever, FDA.
Yes,
they are all there. Go to the page. They are all
including the associations like AGI.
All of them. And so there is this committee that meets and monitors food production in the country. So it's not a simple question of just sitting down one afternoon and determine that you can get a certificate or permit or not. No, the ministry is responsible, particularly Agri. There has been quite a lot of liaison between our ministry and Agriculture Ministry before we came out with this. We thought through. If in the end, the committee through the Agriculture Ministry tells us that there's a deficit, the deficit between production and consumption in the country is this much, so this much has to be imported, it will be allowed through. It's as simple as that.
So what you're saying is you would allow imports, yes, so far as it doesn't create shortage locally?
Absolutely. Of course, so far as also doesn't flood the system. So, to the extent that there will be starvation in the country, we would ensure that the right quantity is allowed into the country. What we would not do, and repeatedly I'm making this point, is to simply get up and arbitrarily
All right, so, I mean, the full interview involving Evans Mensah and the Trade Minister will be played on the PM Express tonight at 9 p.m. Do make a date for the full interview if you missed out earlier. That particular interview will be played again for you at 9 p.m. on PM Express, where the Minister explains all the details about this particular LI that he intends to lay in Parliament. Murtala Mohammed is former Deputy Trade Minister and member of the Trades Committee of Parliament, and he joins us via Zoom. Now, grateful for joining us. Now, the Trades Minister explains that the LI does not entirely ban the import of items into the country. So this should rule out the fears that you have, right?
Well, it shouldn't rule out the fears we have. Our concern, all along has to do with the exclusive powers given to the Minister for Trade. And to be on this issue, is not just an MPP Minister of Trade. It can be abused by even an NDC Minister of Trade. If it is exclusive, the minister who has the authority to grant anybody who wants to import anything into this country. And I think that for me, that is a very dangerous step the minister wants to take. The other is you have.
Well, so that's the former Deputy Trade Minister, Murtala Mohammed, that we're interacting with to find out what they do make of this, LI. So we do have him back. You are making a point. Can you conclude? So we'll move on. But yeah, conclude that statement for me.
I'm saying that our concern on the issue of it being abused or potential of it being abused has nothing to do with NDC MPP politics. Okay. It has to do with any minister of trade at any point in time. Okay. Again, on the issue of whether we have the capacity to produce enough to feed the country domestically, it is very clear that Evans, in engaging the minister, did a fantastic work by providing the minister with the figures of the goods that we have and our capacity to produce and the quantity we produce, which is woefully under, the quantity that we need to feed the domestic market. And for me, that is extremely worrying. Okay. It is the argument that there is a team, the argument that there is a committee that would determine whether a license should be issued or renewed, for me, is neither here nor there.
But Honorable, don't you believe or agree that through the implementation of this policy, local industries will be empowered to meet up with demand?
What you do is that you put in the necessary policy intervention that will boost production first and foremost. The reason why poultry farmers are not producing enough to feed the country is not that they are unwilling to do that, but they can't do that because of the cost of the input, particularly feed. Okay. I used to have a poultry farm. It's collapsed. I'm a farmer, and I can tell you, this year, a lot of farmers complain because birds ate the rice that we produce, particularly rice farmers. So I'm saying that you need to put in the necessary measures to ensure that you boost local production before you come with such restrictions. It simply doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, it is not as if it's something that must take time. Assuming this thing comes to effect, our poultry farmers are producing just less than 10% of what is needed domestically. Rice, we are spending over $2 billion in the importation of rice and poultry products into this country. Okay. Why is it so? So if you have that imposition, it is going to create a lot of problems. And it is not for nothing. All the major stakeholders are saying that they were either not consulted or they are completely against the move the minister is attempting to make.
So for you, what must change about this LI for you to agree that it should be laid and to help government achieve the aim of which it wants to introduce this LI?
First and foremost, the exclusive authority given to the minister has the potential of it being abused. Okay. It doesn't matter which minister, whether an NDC minister for trade or MPP minister of trade. Again, if you listen to the minister's defense, he said that the committee would determine whether the minister can renew a license or not and make their recommendation. Okay. When they make a recommendation, the minister can choose to accept the recommendation or not. Mind you, the members who constitute the committee are all political appointees. And when we argue that it can be abused politically, it's because those who constitute members of the committee are all political appointees. So, for example, if an MPP government feels that this importer is an NDC person, we need to deal with him. Or an NDC government feels that this importer is an MPP person, we need to deal with him. That is not the way to go.
Okay. Now, as a former deputy trade minister, what alternative policy do you think will help government achieve the aim for introducing this legislation?
In 2014, as a result of the imposition of restriction on small rice importers into this country, because we noticed that the small rice importers were those who were not paying taxes. They were those flooding the market because they can bring in goods at any point in time. When we imposed that restriction sometime 2013, by 2014, we were able to reduce the importation of rice into this country by 40% and increase the production of rice by 60%. The measures we put in place, the first decision the Ministry of Trade took when this government came into office in 2017 was to lift that ban on small rice importers. And the ban was not for nothing. I was a deputy minister. Both the small rice importers and big rice importers petitioned the Ministry of Trade. I was asked to constitute a team to do an independent investigation. You know the people I used Kofi Kapito, who is a known MPP person. I used journalists from media houses. They went to Ivory Coast, brought in the goods, and I can tell you the report that was submitted to me as the then Deputy Minister for Trade by the team led by Mr. Kofi Kapito was that.
So we're still having a chat with Murtala Mohammed, who is a former deputy trade minister, to understand. Yeah. So yes, Chief, you're back. You're making a point about how people brought you a report from Ivory Coast and helped you in such alternative policy.
Exactly. In fact, we had what we call equipment. Fertilizer was made free, if you like, to cocoa farmers. You remember? Yes. You also remember that farmers were given tractors at discounted rate, and they were allowed to pay within a particular period of time. All these things have been taken out. Fertilizer cannot be taught. In fact, in my farm, I had about 300 acres of rice farm. And each 100 acre of rice farm, I needed 300 bags of fertilizer. Now, a bag of fertilizer was sold at 450 Ghana cedis. So it means that multiply 300 by 450 and times 3, because if you have 300 acres of rice,
all right.
So it is extremely difficult. What we need to do.
Okay, but the minister in that interview with Evans Mensah explained that if you disagree with his decision, you can go to the High Court. So why are people like you still afraid of this legislation?
The minister explained what?
That when you disagree with his decision, you can go to the High Court and challenge that decision. So why do you still harbor some fears that there will be abuse if the power is given?
I mean, listening to the minister, that was the most slippery comments I heard the minister made. People who are in the business of importing and exporting, particularly importing, everybody knows. And Evans asked him a fantastic question. Evans said, look, anybody in this country, whether you legislate that or not, if the person feels unjustifiably treated, that person can go to court. And I remember Evans asked him that.
Yes.
Why must it take an importer to go to court to seek a redress? This thing is needless.
Okay.
Put in the necessary measures, protect your domestic industries, put in the policy interventions that would